Okay, you guys, this is actually such a serious topic that I should do it on my main page, but this is my news page technically, so I am going to do it here. I would ask that those of you who have come over from my main page and are subscribed here, please do share this because there is something about Kamala Harris that the news is trying to sidestep, but I'm not going to sidestep it today. And that is the fact that Kamala Harris is on record very strongly um, condemning putting children in cages, illegal immigrant children in cages. However, the part of the law that nobody wants to talk about, and I was prompted to research this based on Uncle Luke, remember, who should shut up, his article, because he made the statement that she made laws that locked up children. And all that I have heard is that the law locks up parents. So I went and I looked up the law. And as a matter of fact, not only did the law she created lock up parents, it allowed for children, the truant children, children who missed 3 or more days of school, who were experiencing truancy. It allowed them to be locked up as well. And as a matter of fact, California recently, and by recently, I mean as in last year, overturned the portion of her law that allowed them to put children in jail over being truant. And not just jail, they could also be made a ward of the court, a ward of the state, meaning their parents no longer were the parents, the state were the parents. And in addition to that, they were put on probation. They were made into criminals. Yes, Kamala Harris. But to really put this in perspective, because it's amazing to me this woman wants to be president, when she wants to cape hard for illegals and how horrible it is to put illegals' children in jail, right? Based on the actions of the parent. Because they've been brought here, they don't belong here, they're in the country illegally, so a law's been broken. And she went ahead. Sorry, speaking of children, I conjured up one of my own, but she thinks that it is okay to lock up American children, but she has a problem with illegal immigrant children, not even Americans. She has a problem with that, them being locked up. So let's go ahead and first play this clip. In the description box, I've provided a link to the California law, the statute, the educational code that is part of the Welfare and Institutions Code, which criminalizes and allows the child to be locked up. Now, mind you, that it's been modified. So you've got to go back and look at how the original law was written, because as you can read in the article I provided, as of mid last year, they took out Kamala Harris's clause that allowed them to lock up children. And everybody in the news wants to just ignore the fact that she's okay with American children being locked up, but God forbid you lock up an illegal immigrant child. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. Okay, federal law allows citizens to reproduce, distribute, or exhibit portions of copyrighted motion pictures, videotapes, or video discs under certain circumstances without the authorization of the copyright holder. This is called fair use and is allowed for purposes of criticism, news reporting, teaching, and parody, which doesn't infringe of copyright under 17 USC 107. And we are going to be using this for news reporting, all right? And teaching, if you want to call it that. So let's hear Kamala talk about the atrocity of locking up illegal immigrant children, putting them in cages. You know what I mean?
Joined now by Senator Kamala Harris. Thank you for making time. I know you've been voting today, so we've been awaiting what you wanted to say. First of all, tell me what you think should happen next as far as the Trump administration is concerned with the family separation policy.
Well, they need to end this policy. It is unconscionable, it is immoral, it is wrong, and it is unnecessary.
The family separation policy. You mean like how you lock up the kid's parents and then throw the kid in jail too and make the kid a ward of the state. How that happens to American families based on the law she passed in California, the separation of parent from child. It is inhumane. It's an atrocity when it's an illegal. But when it's our own people, that's not a problem.
And I think that there's no question that it has become very evident to many, many people who've been watching the images that this is not reflective of who we are as a country. And it's got to stop, Ari.
How could it not be reflective of who we are as a country when she, in one of the largest states, in a major city, spearheaded the passing of a law that separated American children from American parents and locked both parents and children in cages?
Gotta stop. Full stop. It's gotta stop.
What do you think Secretary Nielsen should do at this point?
I think she should resign. I think she should resign. I think she is not equipped, based on her conduct, based on the procedures and the policies that she is promulgating. I don't think she is equipped to do the job the way that it needs to be done, which is that there should.
Oh, okay, wait. By her own admission, since she created a very similar policy for American children and American parents that separated them, separated parent from child, incarcerated both parents and children as the law was originally written, just overturned last year. And I wouldn't be surprised if them overturning it, because they were sending kids to juvenile hall. These kids were getting probation, like in real life, because of her. So I wouldn't be surprised, right, if her bid for presidency is part of the reason this was overturned. But is it the height of hypocrisy for her to say somebody else is unfit for a job because of a policy like that when she created a policy like that? She created a policy like that. I attach the truancy code, but in me attaching the truancy code, let me be clear that you're going to have to go back and you're going to have to read it as it was originally written. Because as of, according to this article, as of mid last year, the First District Court of Appeal in San Francisco decided that you could no longer lock their children up for not attending court. That's what was decided in San Francisco. The court said a judge should not have sent RM to juvenile hall for 2 days and then sentenced her to another 15 days of confinement for resisting or obstructing an officer in the performance of his duties because she was a truant child. Youths who are arrested for truancy, she said, can be placed under court supervision in order to undergo counseling along with other measures to get them to attend school, but cannot be threatened with the full force of criminal law, including incarceration. So Kamala's law ended up in a situation where, in this particular example, she was hooked up with an officer who was in charge of helping her help her kid go to school. And although the girl was very naughty, the court decided that throwing her into jail is problematic. This is how far the law went. The appeals court said RM did not illegally obstruct the officer because his only actual duty in arresting a truant, because the law called for the arrest of truants, they were to be arrested and taken to school or turned over to their parents. Like, seriously, this was Kamala Harris's law. It got so bad in San Francisco County. It got so bad under her law that they literally started taking children to jail, to the point where a court finally had to rule that you can't do that. But she thinks a person that creates policies like that is unfit. She thinks a person that creates policies like that is unfit for office and should resign. So I'm going to need her to resign her current position and pull out of the presidential race. Since the very policy she abhors, separating parents from children and putting children in cages, right, mirrors her very own policy in San Francisco. She is responsible for separating children from parents and putting children in cages, to the degree that a court had to overturn the egregious behavior that was being enacted upon based on her law toward the children that were affected by it. We're just going to ignore that, though. And see, then you had Ms. Simone Sanders telling Uncle Luke, who I'm not a fan of Uncle Luke, to shut up. But I'm going to tell you, his little article brought out something about that law that nobody wants to talk about, which is that they were arresting kids too and putting them in cages. It got so out of hand, a California court had to step in and clarify that they could not do that. That by arresting children, it wasn't meant, but by arresting children, they could not literally put children into a jail cell. They were making criminals out of kids who didn't want to go to school, giving them probation officers, locking them up. Judges were sentencing them to time in cells. But we're all up in arms about some illegal people, and Kamala Harris wants to be the president. It literally makes no sense. So yeah, share this video. Share the links below. Do that because I think this is an important issue.